Whoa, Rose said. So you mean we can just waltz up to any animal or plant we want, give them a little bit of that stuff, and suddenly they're a superpowered helper? No, Rose, her mother said. Understand, I gave you this example with a small flower because, well, it's safe. You must understand that accepting the honey is part of the arrangement. It is an offering that we make to nature. Simple plants like trees and flowers that don't have any individual consciousness, don't really have any options. They can't accept or reject it. They simply come under its effects. But other living creatures do not work in that fashion. Anything that has any level of consciousness, such as a wild animal, has a choice, Rose. You may offer honey to any living creature, but that does not mean that they will accept it. Whatever you offer the honey to could find you a much more satisfying snack than the delicious honey that you produce. People usually only give this substance to creatures that they have familiarity with, like pets, except we of the Sky Ray don't actually keep pets. We befriend many wild creatures. We have a naturally calming essence that most animals tend to like, primarily herbivores. Carnivores, well, they're a coin flip. Some of them like us and some of them don't. Or maybe I should say that the ones that don't favor us simply don't care one way or the other. Harder to get to know, I suppose you could call it. They're ingrained with heavy predatory instincts, so they're harder to befriend. But non-predatory animals tend to like us the most, and are the most apt to accept the honey. Okay, so you can't just give it to anything. When it's conscious, the animal has to accept it. Basically, you have to charm it, get it to trust you, so that it'll drink the honey, right? Yes, Rose. That's basically what it amounts to. Alright, so how do I use that again? Rose asked, curious, and wanting to give that a try herself. It's simple, Rose. You simply concentrate on a desire for aid, a cry for help, in the same way that you beseech nature for whatever else it is you want. And as you are focusing on the desire for help, your body will produce the substance, calling it forth. Okay, Rose thought. Concentrate on a need for help, she said, as she got up from her seat on the stone. For a moment, she thought about giving the substance to her small, fluffy friend. However, after hearing that it might make him the size of a bear, Rose decided against it. She liked him being small, fluffy, and cute. Rose decided that the best way to go about it was to do the same thing her mother did. It seemed simple enough. So, without any hesitation, she knelt down, causing the growth of a flower of her own. This one, a rose. She felt it was fitting. It was her namesake after all. As the rose finished growing, standing tall and bloomed outward, its pretty red petals unfurled with the typical smell of a rose, fragrant and inviting. Rose placed out her hands, trying to once again commune with nature, this time focusing on a desire for help. Not a specific desire, but simply help in and of itself. Trying to focus on the desire. And it didn't take long for Rose to begin feeling the effects. She had started to become quite good at communing with nature. Yesterday's training was paying off, as a somewhat glowing golden liquid began to pool in her hands, dripping down onto the rose. At first, pooling very slowly and gently, but suddenly, things took a drastic turn. In moments, the slow, calm flow of this golden liquid began to increase dramatically, suddenly overflowing as the rose began to spring to life, being drowned in it, completely running over Rose's hands. It was not a small trickle. It was as if Rose was having someone hold a pitcher of water above her hands and simply pouring as much as they possibly could, and it overflowed, spilling out all over the ground around the rose as it continued to grow rapidly, soaking up all of the liquid. "Rose, stop! What are you doing?" her mother shouted. Rose was trying to stop. However, it wasn't working. The liquid just seemed to continue to flow. "Stop, stop," she thought. "I don't need help anymore. That's enough. No more help," she thought to herself, as the rose beneath her grew nearly out of control, getting larger with every passing second, now the size of a German shepherd, and hungrily lapping up the liquid that spilled out of her hands. Finally, it began to slow, ceasing its flow. Rose was no longer even cupping her hands as she tried to get the fluid to stop. It was simply running off of her palms. But finally, it came to an end. But the rose in front of Rose continued to grow for some time, having devoured a great deal of the fluid that she had produced. Eventually, the rose turned into an absolutely massive creature, nearly 12 foot across. The rose petals a powerful mane to a massive, frightening head that peered out from the center, with large, razor-sharp teeth, claws that dug into the ground, breathing deeply, powerful gusts of air rushing out from its massive lungs, pushing Rose's hair back as it stared at her. And in the moment, Rose was completely terrified, thinking for sure that she just made something that's going to eat her. And just as the fear began to settle in, the absolutely massive creature sat down, making a large thud on the ground, as it was exceptionally heavy, its breath still racing across Rose's face. It was waiting for orders, just like her mother's, just much, much, much bigger. "That's a good flower," Rose said, trying not to panic. "Dear God," Rose's mother said, as she began to circle around to the opposite side of the creature behind Rose. "I've never in my life imagined such a thing," she said as she looked at it intensely. "I've never seen anything given that much honey, and I've never seen any sky ray produce that much. It's completely absurd," Rose's mother said. "Rose, did you mean to do this?" "No, Mom. Swearsies, I did not mean to do this. I thought I was just gonna create a little one, like the one you made. And then just the stuff, it just kept coming. I couldn't turn it off." "Normally you don't have to, Rose. At least not in any sort of rush. But the amount you produced is absolutely insane. Easily, you must have made at least 4 times what I can." she said as she approached Rose. Tell me, how do you feel? Do you feel at all weak? Hungry? A bit tired, perhaps? No, not at the moment, Rose said, still unable to take her eyes away from this massive creature that she just created, panting, looking at her, patiently waiting for her to tell it to do something. It's astonishing. Once again, I can only surmise it must be the effect of your father. The Okar's ability to enhance their physical state must also affect the honey that you produce, massively increasing the quantity that you can make. Mom, I okay? It isn't going to eat me, is it? No, Rose. Remember, it's bound to you. You created a bond with the plant, and as such, it is loyal to you and your will. It will not harm anyone that you do not wish harmed, and it will protect you against any danger, so long as the effects of the honey last. And how long is that exactly? Rose said, looking over her shoulder a bit at her mother. Well, usually it lasts a day or so before the creature or plant that we gave it to returns to normal. Okay, a day or two. Just one question. What am I supposed to do with it in the meantime? Well, that's up to you, sweetheart. You called for its aid, so it will do whatever you ask of it. Okay, good to know, she said, turning back to the large creature. Can you do me a favor and just stay right there? She said, looking at it, as its breath still beat across her. Just as she finished saying it, the creature lowered the front of its body, lying down on the ground, with another large thunk as its body impacted. Okay, good flower, Rose said, as her heartbeat finally began to slow down.